The innocent waitress was forced to serve as an antidote for the mafia boss, but he fell in love with her at first sight. Before this gets juicier, and it will, show some love with a like. Hit subscribe because we're building the most badass romance community YouTube has ever seen. You're gonna want a front row seat. The coffee pot slipped from Elena's hands, shattering across the diner floor at exactly 11:47 p.m. Not because she was clumsy, 6 months pregnant, and she'd been managing just fine, thank you very much. No, it was because of the 3 men who'd just walked through the door and the way every other customer suddenly found reasons to leave. Fast. Now, I've seen intimidating men before, but Marcus Volkov? Honey, that man walked in like he owned the oxygen in the room. Tall, dark-suited, with eyes that could freeze vodka. The scar running down his left cheek wasn't decorative. That was a man who'd survived things that would break most people. And the 2 mountains of muscle flanking him? They weren't there for the pie. "We're closed," Elena heard herself say. Stupid girl. Brave, but stupid. Marcus's eyes locked onto hers, and something flickered across his face. Surprise? No. Recognition. Like he'd been searching for something and just found it. That look made her skin crawl and her heart race in equal measure. "No," he said, his accent thick as December fog. "You're not." He moved to booth 7. Always booth 7, she'd learn later. And his men positioned themselves by the exits. The air felt wrong, like before a tornado. Elena's hand instinctively went to her belly, where her baby girl kicked nervously. An older man in an expensive coat rushed in behind them, medical bag clutched tight. Dr. Harrison Chen. She recognized him from the news, the controversial researcher who'd been investigated for unethical experiments. And here's where it gets interesting, folks. "Miss Martinez," the doctor said, knowing her name though they'd never met. "Red flag number 1000. We need your help. Mr. Volkov is dying, and you're the only one who can save him." Elena laughed. Actually laughed. "I'm a waitress who can barely afford prenatal vitamins. Try the hospital down the street." Marcus leaned forward, and even from 15 feet away, she could see the tremor in his hands, the grayish tint to his skin. Dying? He looked like death was already filling out the paperwork. "Your blood," Dr. Chen continued, pulling out a file thick enough to be a novel. "During pregnancy, it produces a unique antibody compound. You're one of 3 women in the world with this property, and you're the only one we could find. Mr. Volkov has a degenerative immune disorder. Without you, he has 6 weeks. Maybe. 6 weeks." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Which, well, it was. "That's unfortunate," Elena said, backing toward the kitchen. "But I'm not a pharmacy." $50,000, Marcus said quietly. His voice was rough, like gravel under tires. "Weekly, until my treatment is complete." The number hit her like a physical thing. 50,000. Weekly. Her baby's medical bills alone were crushing her. Her dead husband's debts were drowning her. And this man, this dangerous dying man, was offering her a life raft made of blood money. "What do I have to do?" The words left her mouth before her brain could stop them. Dr. Chen smiled, and it wasn't comforting. "Just let him touch you." "Touch me?" Elena repeated. And honey, if you could have seen her face. This girl went from desperate to disgusted in 0.5 seconds flat. "I'm not that kind of physical contact," Dr. Chen interrupted, pulling out charts that looked like they belonged in a sci-fi movie. "Skin-to-skin contact for minimum 2 hours daily. Your biochemistry during pregnancy creates a transdermal transfer of antibodies. It's temporary, but it stabilizes his condition." Marcus hadn't moved from booth 7, but his eyes never left her, studying her like she was a puzzle he needed to solve. And let me tell you, ladies, a man like that looking at you with that intensity, it's either thrilling or terrifying, sometimes both. "So I'm basically a human IV drip," Elena said flatly, "for a crime boss." "I prefer entrepreneur," Marcus said. And was that humor in his voice? The man was dying and making jokes. Points for style, 0 for timing. "Mr. Volkov controls 70% of this city's import business," Dr. Chen said, as if that made it better. "He's a criminal," Elena finished. "I watch the news, doctor. I know exactly who he is." She looked at Marcus directly. "Your men killed a federal prosecutor last month. It was all over the papers. Thomas Bergen was stealing from his own cases. Marcus replied calmly. 3 million in seized assets. He was also trafficking information to the Kozlov family. I simply solved a problem your government couldn't. You murdered him. I eliminated a threat. Marcus stood slowly, and even clearly weakened, he moved with predatory grace. Your late husband, Daniel Martinez, he understood how the world really works. Elena's blood went cold. Don't you dare mention Danny! He owed me $43,000, Marcus continued, moving closer. His men tensed, but he waved them off. Gambling debts, bad investments. I erased that debt when he died in that car accident 4 months ago. You're welcome. The room tilted. Danny's accident. The police said brake failure. Mechanical error. But the way Marcus said it, the weight in those words. You killed my husband, Elena whispered. No. Marcus was close enough now that she could smell his cologne. Expensive, subtle, with an undertone of something medicinal. But I know who did. And I can tell you why. Hook, line, and sinker, folks. The man was good, I'll give him that. Miss Martinez, Dr. Chen interjected, Mr. Volkov's condition is deteriorating rapidly. If we don't begin treatment tonight, he'll be in organ failure by morning. I understand this is overwhelming, but 2 hours, Elena interrupted, daily, 50,000 weekly. And you tell me everything about Danny's death. Marcus extended his hand. We have an agreement. When their hands touched, 2 things happened simultaneously. First, Marcus's entire body seemed to relax, color returning to his face like someone had flipped a switch. Second, Elena felt it, a strange warmth spreading from the contact point, not unpleasant, but deeply unsettling. Like her body recognized something her mind didn't understand. Well, Marcus said softly, still holding her hand, this is going to be interesting. And sweetheart, he had no idea. The penthouse apartment was the kind of place Elena had only seen in movies. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, furniture that probably cost more than her yearly salary, art on the walls that looked suspiciously like originals. Marcus's home was a fortress wrapped in luxury. Your room, Dmitri, Marcus's right-hand man, said, opening a door to a suite bigger than her entire apartment. Private bathroom, full closet, anything you need. I need to go home, Elena said. I have work tomorrow and I'm not living here like some kind of... You'll be compensated for lost wages, Marcus said, appearing from what she assumed was his own room. He changed into comfortable clothes, silk pajama pants and a fitted t-shirt that showed off a physique that had no business being that good on a dying man. Doctor, Chen recommends overnight proximity for optimal antibody transfer. You want me to sleep here? Elena's voice rose. Absolutely not. I agreed to 2 hours of hand-holding, not a sleepover at Crime Boss Castle. Marcus's jaw tightened. My life depends on extended exposure to you. The treatment requires... I don't care what it requires, Elena snapped. Her baby kicked hard, as if agreeing. I have a life, Mr. Volkov. A job, bills, responsibilities. I can't just move into your mansion because it's convenient for your medical condition. They stared at each other, and the tension could have powered the whole building. This man was used to obedience, instant and absolute. And here was this pregnant waitress telling him no. I loved this girl. 300,000, Marcus said finally. Weekly. You live here, full-time medical monitoring, complete security. Your apartment's rent will be paid, your belongings moved. You think everything has a price? In my experience, yes. He moved closer, but this time she noticed he swayed slightly. The brief contact earlier was already wearing off. But I'm learning you might be the exception. Dr. Chen appeared with a wheelchair. Mr. Volkov, you need to rest. The initial contact provided temporary stabilization, but I'm fine. You're collapsing, Elena said, and despite her anger, she found herself moving forward. Sit down before you fall down. Their eyes met, and something passed between them that neither wanted to name. Marcus sat, but only because his legs were giving out. Elena, operating on pure instinct, or maybe stupidity, took his hand again. The effect was immediate. Color flooded back, his breathing steadied, and his hands stopped shaking. They stayed like that for several seconds, neither speaking, both acutely aware of the strange intimacy of the moment. 2 weeks, Elena said quietly. I'll stay 2 weeks while we figure out a better system. But I have conditions. I want my friend Sophie to visit freely. I want honest answers about Danny. And I want a real contract, not just your word. Done, Marcus agreed. Anything else? Yeah. She pulled her hand back, watching his condition immediately begin to deteriorate again. Tell me why you're looking at me like that. Like what? Like I'm not just your medicine. Marcus smiled, and it transformed his entire face. Because you're not. And ladies and gentlemen, that's when our girl realized she'd made a deal with the devil, and he was falling in love with her. Day 3 of Elena's new life as a human antidote, and the routine was surreal. Morning started with Dr. Chen taking blood samples. Just monitoring, he assured her, though she trusted him about as far as she could throw him in her current state. Then 2 hours of what they called contact therapy with Marcus. Usually they sat in his study while he worked, her hand in his, pretending this was normal. Spoiler alert, nothing about this was normal. The Kozlov family is moving product through the harbor, Dmitri reported, not even batting an eye at Elena's presence anymore. She'd become furniture, expensive, life-saving furniture. They're using shell companies to— I'm right here, Elena interrupted. You're just going to discuss crimes in front of me? Marcus looked up from the documents he'd been reviewing, his thumb absently stroking circles on her palm. He probably didn't even realize he was doing it. You're bound by a non-disclosure agreement. Besides, what will you do? Tell the police that the man whose hand you're holding for money is discussing business? He had a point. A terrible, accurate point. Your baby, Marcus said, changing the subject in that abrupt way he had. She's healthy? How did you know it's a girl? I asked Dr. Chen to review your medical files. I need to ensure the pregnancy isn't affected by the treatment. He said it matter-of-factly, like invading her privacy was just basic due diligence. She's due in January. And you just looked at my private medical information? That's illegal. So is most of what I do, Elena. He used her first name now, had started on day 2. She hadn't given him permission, but she also hadn't stopped him. At least this illegality helps you. Sophie's voice echoed from the foyer. Elena, where are you in this ridiculous mansion? And Elena had never been so happy to hear her friend's chaos. Sophie burst into the study like a hurricane in yoga pants, took one look at Elena and Marcus sitting there holding hands, and her jaw dropped. Okay, I have so many questions, and they all start with what the hell? Sophie, meet Marcus Volkov. Marcus, my best friend Sophie Chen. Chen? Marcus and Elena said simultaneously. Yeah, Dr. Harrison Chen is my uncle, Sophie said casually. Like dropping that bomb was no big deal. He told me he'd found you, Elena, but he didn't mention you'd be shacking up with the Russian mob boss. Although, she studied Marcus critically. You're hotter than your FBI photos. Prison lighting does nobody favors. Elena would have laughed if her brain hadn't just exploded. Your uncle is Dr. Chen, the one who researched me without consent? Research is a strong word. More like obsessively cataloged pregnant women with rare blood markers across 3 continents for 5 years. Sophie shrugged. Uncle Harrison has boundary issues. Clearly runs in the family, Marcus muttered. For the next hour, Sophie alternated between interrogating Marcus. So, on a scale of 1 to Scarface, how criminal are you? And fussing over Elena's living situation. She approved of the luxury, but disapproved of everything else. He's using you, Sophie whispered when Marcus excused himself to take a call. I know. And you're letting him because of the money. My daughter needs a future, Soph. Danny left us with nothing but debt and— Elena's voice caught. And I still don't know if his accident was really an accident. Sophie's expression hardened. Has he told you anything? Not yet, but he will. Elena watched through the glass walls as Marcus spoke on the phone, his free hand pressed to his chest. Even from here, she could see him weakening without her contact. He needs me too much to lie. What Elena didn't know, what she couldn't know yet, was that Marcus had already investigated Danny's death. He knew exactly what happened, who was responsible, and why, and the truth would destroy her. But we'll get to that. Patience, darlings. The nightmare started at 3:17 a.m. Elena woke to screaming, Marcus's screaming, and the sound of something crashing in his room next door. She was out of bed before her brain caught up, bare feet hitting cold marble as she ran. Mr. Volkov! Dmitri was already at Marcus's door, pounding. Sir! Elena pushed past him, pregnant and fierce, God love her, and burst into Marcus's bedroom. The sight stopped her cold. Marcus was on the floor, convulsing, His skin gray as ash, foam at his lips. Blood dripped from his nose. Dr. Chen was there in seconds, but he was panicking, hands shaking as he tried to administer something. "What's happening?" Elena demanded. "Acute rejection response," Dr. Chen gasped. "His body is shutting down. The treatment isn't, we need—" Elena dropped to her knees beside Marcus, grabbing his hand with both of hers. "I'm here. I'm right here." Nothing happened. "It's not working," Dr. Chen shouted. "The antibody transfer isn't—" "Then tell me what will." Elena was crying now, surprised by her own tears. When had she started caring whether this man lived or died? Full contact, skin to skin, maximum surface area. Dr. Chen looked away. It's the only way to stabilize him fast enough. Elena understood what he was asking. She looked at Dmitri. "Out. Everyone out. Now." They hesitated until she screamed it. Then they left, and it was just Elena and this dying man who'd dragged her into his world. She pulled off her nightshirt, thank God for pregnancy modesty panels, and lay down beside him, pressing as much of her body against his as possible, her arms wrapped around him. The effect was dramatic. Marcus gasped, his body relaxing, color flooding back. His arms came around her instinctively, holding her close as his breathing steadied. They lay there in the darkness, her pregnant belly between them, two strangers in an embrace more intimate than most lovers share. "Elena," Marcus whispered against her hair. Just don't talk." But he did anyway. "Your husband, Danny. I didn't have him killed." "I don't believe you." "The Kozlov family did it. He witnessed a murder, was going to testify. They made it look like an accident." Marcus's voice was raw. "I found out 3 days later. By then, you'd already buried him." Elena went rigid. "You're lying." "I wish I was." He pulled back enough to look at her, and his eyes were clearer than she'd ever seen them. "The men who killed Danny, they're dead now. I handled it personally. You? You killed them? For Danny? For you." 3 simple words that changed everything. Before I knew who you were, what you'd become to me. I just knew my men had information about Daniel Martinez's widow, and that the Kozlovs had stolen something from you. So I took it back. Elena's mind reeled. Revenge she'd never asked for. Justice delivered by bloody hands. And this man, this criminal, looking at her like she was something precious. "I don't know if that makes you better or worse," she whispered. "Worse," Marcus said without hesitation. "It always makes me worse. But I'd do it again." They stayed like that until dawn, neither sleeping, both pretending this was purely medical. But the way his hand rested on her hip, the way she'd unconsciously curved into him, that wasn't medicine. That was something far more dangerous. 2 weeks became 3, then 4. Elena told herself it was about the money, the contract, her daughter's future. She told herself a lot of things that were beautifully, catastrophically untrue. The truth? She was falling for him. And honey, that was like falling for a beautiful tornado. Spectacular, sure, also guaranteed to destroy everything. "You're staring again," Marcus said without looking up from his chess game with Dmitri. They played every Thursday, a ritual that apparently went back 15 years. "I'm not staring. I'm observing." Elena was curled up in the leather chair by the window, her daily 2 hours of hand-holding fulfilled, but she'd stayed anyway. That should have been her first clue. "Check," Dmitri announced, moving his bishop. "Mate in 3 moves," Marcus countered. "You always leave your queen exposed, old friend." Sophie had visited every day for the past 2 weeks, ostensibly to check on Elena, but really to interrogate Marcus. Today's question: "So when are you going to admit you're in love with my best friend?" The chess piece Marcus had been holding clattered to the board. "Sophie," Elena choked. "What? I'm just saying what everyone's thinking." Sophie gestured at them. "You've memorized her coffee order, her favorite books, the exact way she likes pillows arranged for her back. You smile when she enters rooms. You, Mr. Emotionless Crime Lord, smile. And Elena?" She turned to her friend. "You touch him even when you don't have to. You laugh at his terrible Russian proverbs. Last week, I caught you reading a book on Russian history. That's not... I was just... Face it, bestie. You're in love with the mob boss. And before you protest, let me remind you that denial is not just a river in Egypt." The silence that followed was deafening. Dmitri excused himself. Marcus stared at the chessboard. Elena stared at her hands. Sophie looked immensely pleased with herself. I should go, Elena finally said, standing. I'm tired and… Marcus caught her hand as she passed. Stay. Marcus, please. He never said please, never asked, but now he was looking up at her with something raw in his eyes. Stay. So she did, because she was an idiot or in love or both. That night, Dr. Chen called an emergency meeting. His expression was grim as he spread test results across Marcus's desk. The treatment is working. Your numbers are improving significantly, Mr. Volkov. You're stabilizing. That's good news, Elena said slowly. So why do you look like someone died? Because Miss Martinez's antibody production is pregnancy-dependent. Dr. Chen met her eyes. After you give birth, within 72 hours, your blood will return to normal. You won't be able to help him anymore. The words hung in the air like a guillotine blade. How long does he have after that? Elena whispered. 3 months. Maybe 4. Marcus stood abruptly, turning to face the windows, his back to everyone. His shoulders were rigid, hands clenched. Then we have until January to find an alternative treatment. Marcus, Elena started. Thank you, Dr. Chen. That will be all. After the doctor left, Elena approached Marcus slowly. Talk to me. There's nothing to say. We knew this was temporary. You're angry. I'm furious. He turned, and the vulnerability in his face shattered her. I finally find something worth living for, and I have a timer on it. 3 months with you, Elena. That's all I get. Worth living for? She stepped closer. Marcus, I'm your medicine. That's all. You're everything. He cupped her face in his hands, and every rule they'd established shattered. You're my miracle, my anchor, my reason to fight, and I'm going to lose you. You don't have me to lose. Don't I? And then he kissed her. Soft at first, questioning, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. Instead, she kissed him back with 4 months of denied feelings and impossible situations and the terrible truth that Sophie was right. She loved him. This dangerous, complicated, dying man. She loved him. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Elena pressed her forehead to his. This is a terrible idea. The worst. Marcus agreed. We have 3 months. Then let's make them count. And darlings, that's when everything went straight to hell. Because in Marcus's world, happiness was just another thing people tried to steal. Happiness in Marcus Volkov's world lasted exactly 48 hours. That's how long Elena got to pretend that loving a dying mob boss might somehow work out. Then reality came knocking, with grenades. The explosion ripped through the building's east wing at 2 a.m., throwing Elena from her bed. Her first thought was the baby. Her second was Marcus. She was crawling toward the door when Dmitri burst in, scooping her up like she weighed nothing. We're under attack, he said, carrying her down the hallway as gunfire erupted below. Kozlov family, they know about you. Where's Marcus? Fighting. Dmitri's jaw was tight. Where he shouldn't be, given his condition. They found Marcus in the main hall, gun in hand, 3 bodies already on the marble floor. His face was gray, hands shaking, but his aim was perfect. When he saw Elena, relief and fury warred across his features. Get her to the safe room, he barked at Dmitri. Not without you, Elena shouted back, because apparently pregnancy made her suicidal. Another explosion. The chandelier crashed down, missing them by feet. Marcus grabbed Elena's hand, and even in the chaos, she felt his body stabilize from her touch. They ran together, Dmitri covering their rear, toward the reinforced panic room hidden behind Marcus's study. Inside, surrounded by steel walls and emergency supplies, Elena finally lost it. What the hell was that? The Kozlovs found out you're keeping me alive, Marcus said, checking his gun with practiced efficiency. They want you dead. If you die, I die. Simple math. Simple? Simple? Elena's voice rose. People are trying to kill me and my unborn child because I'm your personal pharmacy. I'll handle them. Like you handled everything else? By making it worse? She was crying now, angry tears streaming down her face. I should never have agreed to this. I should have… Marcus pulled her close, his forehead against hers. I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. His voice cracked. I should have anticipated this. Should have protected you better. You can't even protect yourself, Elena whispered. Then I'll die trying to protect you. Dimitri's radio crackled. Boss, we've got them contained. 8 hostiles neutralized. 2 escaped. Building is secure. Marcus exhaled slowly. And our people? 3 wounded, none critical. The relief in Marcus's eyes was palpable, but Elena saw something else there too. Guilt. This was his life. Violence, death, constant danger, and he'd dragged her into it. Dr. Shaw. Chen arrived an hour later, checking Elena thoroughly. The baby's fine, strong heartbeat, but Miss Martinez, your stress levels are dangerous. This kind of trauma... Trauma? Elena laughed bitterly. I was almost blown up by Russian mobsters because my blood is magic. I think trauma is underselling it. We're moving locations, Marcus announced. I have a safe house upstate, fortified, isolated, completely secure. Or, Elena said slowly, I leave. We end this arrangement and the Kozlovs have no reason to target me. You'd die, Marcus said it flatly. You know what I'm capable of, what I've done. The Kozlovs know you've seen too much. They'll kill you to eliminate the witness, regardless of our arrangement. The trap had fully sprung. Elena had walked into this thinking she could walk out, but Marcus's world didn't let people leave. It swallowed them whole. So my choices are stay and be hunted or leave and be hunted? She laughed, the sound edging toward hysteria. At least if I stay, I'm getting paid. Elena, save it. She stood, one hand on her belly where her daughter was kicking up a storm. I'll go to your safe house, but not because I trust you, because right now, you're the only option I have. As Dimitri prepared for their departure, Sophie arrived in a frenzy of panic and profanity. I just heard. Are you okay? Is the baby? We're fine, Elena said, hugging her friend tight, but I'm leaving the city for a while. I'm coming with you. No. Elena pulled back. It's too dangerous. These people don't care about collateral damage. Which is exactly why you need me. Sophie's chin lifted stubbornly. Besides, Uncle Harrison says Marcus's treatment needs constant monitoring. Where you go, medical supervision goes. They left at dawn, a convoy of 3 black SUVs, heading north toward a future Elena couldn't predict. She sat beside Marcus, their hands clasped, watching the city disappear behind them. He brought her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles gently. I'll fix this, he promised. You can't fix everything, Marcus. Watch me. And darlings, that's when our girl realized something terrifying. She didn't just love him anymore, she believed in him. And belief in Marcus Volkov's world was the most dangerous thing of all. The safe house was a compound, really. 20 acres of wooded property, a main house that looked like a rustic mansion, and enough security measures to make Fort Knox jealous. Elena should have felt safe. Instead, she felt trapped. 3 weeks at the compound, and the routine became surreal. Morning contact sessions with Marcus. Afternoon walks around the property with armed guards shadowing them. Evenings playing chess. He was teaching her, and she was terrible but improving. It was almost domestic, almost normal, if you ignored the assault rifles and bulletproof windows. Your move, Marcus said, studying the board between them. Elena moved her knight, knowing it was wrong but doing it anyway. Marcus smiled, actually smiled, and proceeded to checkmate her in 4 moves. You're getting better, he lied. I'm getting destroyed less quickly. There's a difference. She leaned back, one hand absently rubbing her belly. The baby was active tonight, doing gymnastics against her ribs. Marcus, what happens after January? We find another treatment. And if you don't, then I have 4 months to teach you everything you need to know to survive in this world. His expression was serious now. Resources, contacts, security protocols. You and your daughter will be protected, Elena. I promise you that. I don't want your world. I want... She stopped, not sure how to finish that sentence. A normal life? A safe life? Marcus reached across the table, taking her hand. I can't give you that, but I can give you everything else. Dr. Chen interrupted with test results. Your antibody levels are remarkable, Miss Martinez. The pregnancy is enhancing them beyond my initial projections. It's possible, and this is purely theoretical, that if we could harvest and synthesize these antibodies before birth, we might be able to create a long-term treatment for Mr. Volkov. Elena sat up straighter. You're saying we could make a cure? I'm saying it's worth exploring, but the process would be experimental, potentially risky to you and the baby. No, Marcus said immediately. Absolutely not. It's my choice, Elena countered. If there's a chance to save you without this constant danger, without needing me forever, I said no. Marcus's voice had that edge that made men twice his size back down. I won't risk you or your child. We'll find another way. They argued for an hour, neither giving ground. Elena finally stormed off to her room, frustrated and confused. Why wouldn't he let her try? Why was he so determined to refuse a potential cure? Sophie found her later, bringing tea and sympathy. He's protecting you. From what? A medical procedure? From himself. Sophie settled onto the bed beside her. Marcus knows that once you give birth, once you're not his lifeline anymore, you'll leave. And he can't handle that. So he's refusing the cure because it means losing you. That's insane. That's love, babe. It makes people crazy. Sophie squeezed her hand. The question is, what do you want? What did she want? 6 months ago, Elena wanted to pay her bills, raise her daughter alone, and maybe find a reason to smile again. Now she wanted impossible things. A future with a man who had no future. Safety in a world built on danger. Love in a heart that had been broken. That night, she found Marcus in his study, staring at files spread across his desk. Intelligence reports on the Kozlov family. Photos of their operations. Names highlighted, crossed out, annotated with notes only he could decipher. Can't sleep? She asked from the doorway. Sleeping feels like wasting time. He looked up, and the exhaustion in his eyes broke her heart. Every moment I'm unconscious is a moment I'm not protecting you. Elena crossed to him, turning his chair so they faced each other. She took his hands in hers, feeling his body respond to her touch. You can't protect me if you collapse from exhaustion. I can try. Marcus Volkov, you are the most stubborn, frustrating, impossible man I've ever met. She leaned forward, kissing him softly. And I love you. So please, for the love of God, let someone else take watch and come to bed. You love me? He said it like he'd never heard the words before. Unfortunately. She smiled despite everything. Really, really unfortunate timing on my part. Marcus pulled her onto his lap, carefully, always so careful with her pregnant belly, and held her like she was the only thing keeping him tethered to earth. Which, medically speaking, she was. I love you too, he whispered against her hair, and I'm terrified of what that means. Join the club. We have jackets. They stayed like that until Dmitri knocked, his expression urgent. Boss, we've got movement on the perimeter, multiple vehicles approaching. Marcus was on his feet instantly, all softness gone. How many? Looks like a dozen, maybe more. The Kozlovs had found them, and this time, they'd brought an army. Elena, safe room now. Marcus's command voice was back, cold and controlled. But Elena saw his hands shaking, saw the gray tint returning to his skin. He'd been away from her for 3 hours, and his condition was already deteriorating. Not happening, she said, grabbing his hand. You need me to fight. I need you alive. Then we stay together. She met his eyes with steel in her own. Because if you die protecting me, I die anyway when they storm this place. At least this way, you've got a chance. Dmitri was already distributing weapons, barking orders into his radio. The compound security team, 12 trained men, took positions. Floodlights illuminated the property. Through the windows, Elena could see vehicles circling, at least 15 of them. They've got us outnumbered, Dmitri reported grimly. They've always got us outnumbered, Marcus replied, checking his weapon. Hasn't stopped us before. The first shots shattered the living room windows. Elena hit the floor, Marcus covering her body with his. Glass rained down around them. Then all hell broke loose. Gunfire erupted from every direction. The Kozlovs weren't being subtle. This was a full assault. Marcus returned fire with deadly precision, dropping 3 men in as many seconds. But Elena could feel his strength failing, his hands growing unsteady. Marcus, you need contact, she shouted over the chaos. I need you safe. A grenade bounced through the broken window. Dmitri dove for it, throwing it back out before it detonated. The explosion lit up the night, and Elena saw them clearly now. At least 30 men, all armed, all advancing. Safe room has a reinforced medical station. Dr. Chen yelled, appearing from somewhere with a medical kit. We can set up there, maintain contact while protected. Marcus hesitated for exactly 2 seconds before nodding. Dimitri, hold them off. We're falling back. They retreated through the house, Marcus and Dr. Chen flanking Elena, returning fire at every window. The safe room was in the basement, behind 3 locked doors and a biometric scanner. Once inside, the sounds of battle became muffled but not silent. Doctor. Chen immediately set up an IV line from Elena to Marcus, a more efficient transfer of antibodies than just contact. Marcus protested until Elena shut him up with a look that could melt steel. You're getting the IV or I'm going back upstairs. Choose. He chose the IV. Through the security monitors, they watched the battle unfold. Marcus's men were good, really good. But the Kozlovs kept coming, wave after wave. It was a war of attrition, and Marcus's team was losing. We need backup, Elena said, watching another of Marcus's men go down. It's coming, 20 minutes out. Marcus was on his phone, coordinating with what sounded like half his organization. We just need to hold until... The power died. Emergency lights kicked in, bathing everything in red. On the monitors, they watched the Kozlovs breach the main house. They're inside, Dimitri's voice crackled over the radio. Boss, they're coming for the basement. Marcus looked at Elena, and she saw the calculation in his eyes. The safe room could hold against anything, but his men upstairs were about to be slaughtered. I have to go up there, he said. You'll die. They'll die if I don't. He started disconnecting the IV and Elena grabbed his arm. Then we go together. Elena, I'm connected to you. I go where you go. She stood, one hand on her belly, the other on his chest. Besides, you said it yourself. I've seen too much. If you die, I die anyway. So let's make sure neither of us dies tonight. Marcus looked at Dr. Chen. Keep her safe, whatever happens. No, Elena interrupted. Whatever happens, we face it together. What happened next would later be called the Compound Massacre. But for Elena, holding Marcus's hand as they climbed those basement stairs, it felt less like a massacre and more like a choice. The choice to stand with someone, even when standing meant falling. The choice to love someone, even when love meant risking everything. They emerged into chaos, bodies on the floor, some theirs, some enemies, smoke thick enough to choke on. And advancing through it all, Alexei Kozlov himself, flanked by 15 men, all armed, all focused on one thing, killing Marcus Volkov. Well, Marcus said calmly, squeezing Elena's hand, this is going to be interesting. And honey, that was the understatement of the century. Alexei Kozlov was everything Marcus wasn't. Flashy gold jewelry, expensive suit already stained with someone else's blood, and a smile that promised pain. He looked at Marcus with the hatred of a man who'd lost everything to his rival. Volkov, Alexei said, his accent thicker than Marcus's. You've cost me millions, killed my brother, destroyed my operations. His eyes shifted to Elena, and his smile widened. And this is your miracle cure? The pregnant girl? Leave her out of this, Marcus said, positioning himself between Elena and the guns. Oh, I don't think so. Alexei raised his weapon, aiming directly at Elena's belly. I kill her, I kill your cure, I kill your baby, I kill everything you love. Poetic, yes? Time slowed down. Elena saw Marcus's finger tightening on his trigger, saw Dimitri, bleeding from a shoulder wound, raising his gun from behind an overturned couch. Saw Dr. Chen pressed against the wall, looking absolutely terrified. And she saw Sophie. Sophie! Appearing from the hallway with a gun she definitely shouldn't know how to use. You hurt my best friend, Sophie said, voice shaking but aim steady. And I'll show you what a Chen woman with boundary issues can do. Alexei laughed. So many heroes. So much. He never finished the sentence. Marcus shot him in the chest, then the shoulder, then the leg, systematically dismantling him while his men stood frozen. When Alexei hit the ground, still breathing but barely, Marcus stood over him. You threatened my woman and my child, Marcus said quietly, and his voice was colder than Elena had ever heard it. Did you really think you'd leave this house alive? The shot that killed Alexei Kozlov echoed through the compound. His men, seeing their leader dead, did what any smart criminal does when facing Marcus Volkov. They surrendered. Backup arrived minutes later, 50 of Marcus's men, armed to the teeth, flooding the property. The battle was over. The Kozlov family was broken. And Elena was sitting on the floor, arms wrapped around her belly, shaking so hard her teeth chattered. Marcus dropped beside her, pulling her close. It's over. You're safe. I've got you. I thought they were going to... Shh. I know. He held her tighter, and she felt wetness on her face that wasn't her own tears. Marcus Volkov was crying. Actually crying. I almost lost you. But you didn't. Elena pulled back, cupping his face in her hands. We're alive. We're together. That's what matters. Dr. Chen checked her thoroughly, confirming what Elena already knew. The baby was fine. Resilient little thing, just like her mother. Sophie alternated between hugging Elena and explaining how she'd learned to shoot from watching YouTube videos, which was either impressive or terrifying, possibly both. That night, after the bodies were removed and the house was secured, Marcus took Elena to the compound's master bedroom. He'd never brought her here before. This was his private space. Now, he laid her on the bed, careful of her belly, and just held her. I need to tell you something, he said quietly. If it's that you love me, I already know. It's that I'm scared. Marcus's voice was barely a whisper. Truly, deeply terrified. Because I've never had anything worth losing before. And now I have you and the baby, and the thought of losing either of you. You won't. You don't know that. After you give birth, after your blood changes, I have maybe 4 months. And then we fight. Elena turned to face him. We let Dr. Chen try to synthesize a cure. We explore every option. We don't give up. What if it doesn't work? Then we have 4 months to live a lifetime. She kissed him softly. But Marcus, I don't think it's going to come to that. I have a feeling about this. About us. Your feelings include me surviving? My feelings include you meeting your daughter. Being there for her first steps. Teaching her chess like you taught me, even though I'm terrible at it. Elena smiled. My feelings are stubborn like that. Marcus laughed, the sound surprised and genuine. Your feelings have excellent taste. They made love that night, slowly and carefully, with all the tenderness of people who'd almost lost everything. And afterward, lying in his arms with their daughter kicking between them, Elena made herself a promise. Marcus Volkov would not die. She'd move heaven and earth, would give everything she had, would find a way to save him. Because she'd already lost one man she loved. She refused to lose another. The universe could try to stop her. But honey, the universe had no idea who it was messing with. January arrived with snow and complications. Elena was 9 months pregnant, the size of a house, and Dr. Chen was hovering like a very anxious bird. Marcus was stable. The daily contact plus supplemental IV treatments were working, but everyone knew the clock was ticking. We need to discuss the birth plan, Dr. Chen said over breakfast, looking at Elena with medical determination. Ideally, we'd want a hospital, but given the security situation, I'm not giving birth in a hospital where the Kozlov's remaining members could access me, Elena said firmly. We have a medical suite here. You're a licensed physician. We'll manage. I'm a researcher, not an obstetrician. Then it's a good thing I consulted with one, Sophie announced, video calling in from the city. She'd gone back after the attack, claiming someone needed to maintain normalcy. Dr. Patricia Walsh, best OB in the state, will be arriving tomorrow. She's been briefed on the security situation and has agreed to deliver the baby here for an absolutely obscene amount of money. Marcus looked at Sophie with something approaching respect. How did you manage that? I'm a Chen. We excel at ethically questionable problem solving. The next 2 weeks were a blur of preparation. Dr. Walsh arrived, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who looked at the compound's medical suite and simply said, Well, I've worked in worse conditions. She examined Elena thoroughly and pronounced everything normal, though she side-eyed Marcus constantly. You're the father? Dr. Walsh asked bluntly. No, Marcus replied. But I will be. Elena's heart did something complicated at those words. Her water broke on January 15th at 3 a.m. because of course it did. Nothing in Elena's life happened conveniently. Labor was 14 hours of pain, swearing, and Marcus holding her hand while she crushed his fingers and questioned every decision that had led to this moment. I hate you, Elena panted between contractions. I know. This is your fault. It's actually your late husband's fault, Marcus said reasonably. But I'll accept the blame if it helps. When this is over, she screamed as another contraction hit. When this is over, you're getting a vasectomy. Whatever you want, my love. At 5:47 p.m., Elena Martinez gave birth to a 7-pound, 2-ounce baby girl with a full head of dark hair and lungs that could wake the dead. She was perfect. Absolutely, devastatingly perfect. Hello, little one, Elena whispered, tears streaming down her face. I'm your mama. Marcus stood beside the bed, looking at the baby with an expression Elena had never seen on his face. Wonder. Pure, unfiltered wonder. When Dr. Walsh handed him the baby, he held her like she was made of glass and miracles. She's beautiful, he said, voice rough with emotion. What's her name? Elena hadn't told anyone. She'd kept it secret, waiting for this moment. Natasha. Natasha Elena Martinez. Natasha, Marcus repeated, and then he understood. A Russian name. For the Russian man who'd become her father in every way that mattered. Elena, she's yours, Elena said simply. Not by blood, but by choice, by love. She's ours, Marcus. What happened next, no one expected. Dr. Chen was taking blood samples per protocol when he noticed something on the monitors, something impossible. Her antibody levels, he said, staring at the screen. They're not dropping. They should be declining immediately post-birth, but they're stable, actually increasing. What does that mean? Marcus asked, still cradling Natasha. It means Dr. Chen ran more tests, his hands shaking with excitement. It means the pregnancy triggered a permanent genetic change in Miss Martinez's blood chemistry. The antibodies aren't going away. They're part of her now. The room went silent. She can still save me? Marcus's voice was barely audible. More than that. We can synthesize these antibodies now, create a long-term treatment. Not a cure, not yet, but sustainable management. You could have years, maybe decades if this works. Elena started laughing, then crying, then both at once. You mean I don't have an expiration date for you anymore? You never had an expiration date, Marcus said, sitting beside her on the bed, still holding Natasha. But now we get to prove it. Dr. Walsh, who'd been quietly observing all this medical drama, cleared her throat. I don't know what kind of operation you people are running here, but that baby needs to eat, and Elena needs to rest. So everyone not essential to either of those activities, out. Sophie ushered everyone away, giving Elena and Marcus privacy. In the quiet aftermath of birth and revelation, they sat together, Marcus, Elena, and Natasha, a family that shouldn't exist but did anyway. We're going to be okay, Elena whispered. We're going to be extraordinary, Marcus corrected, and for the first time in months, Elena believed him completely. 6 months later, the compound had transformed. No longer a fortress under siege, it had become a home. Natasha's nursery took up the entire east wing, Marcus's doing, of course. The man who once terrified entire criminal organizations now spent his evenings playing peekaboo and reading Russian fairy tales to a 6-month-old who couldn't understand a word. Elena watched from the doorway as Marcus held Natasha, pointing out the window at birds she was too young to care about. Her heart felt too full for her chest. She's got you wrapped around her tiny finger, Elena said, entering the nursery. She's brilliant and beautiful. Of course she does. Marcus smiled, that rare, genuine smile he reserved only for them. Just like her mother. Dr. Chen's synthesized antibody treatment was working. Marcus's condition had stabilized to the point where he only needed bi-weekly injections. He was still dependent on the treatment, but the immediate death sentence had been lifted. They had time. Beautiful, impossible time. The Kozlov family's remaining members had scattered after Alexei's death. Marcus had consolidated power, but more importantly, he'd started transitioning the organization toward legitimate business. For Natasha, he'd said, I won't have my daughter inheriting a criminal empire. Sophie had moved to the compound permanently, claiming the city was boring anyway. She and Dmitri were dating now, which everyone saw coming except them. Dr. Walsh visited monthly to check on Natasha and judge Marcus's life choices, which he tolerated with surprising grace. That evening, after Natasha was asleep, Marcus took Elena's hand and led her outside. The property was beautiful in the summer twilight, fireflies dancing across the lawn. He'd planned this, she realized, the romantic setting, the privacy. What are you up to? she asked suspiciously. I'm about to make a series of extremely poor decisions, Marcus said, pulling a small box from his pocket. Starting with this. Elena's breath caught. 6 months ago, you were a waitress serving coffee, and I was a dying man with nothing to lose. You saved my life, Elena, not just medically. You made me want to live. You made me believe I could be something other than what I was. He opened the box, revealing a ring that was elegant and simple and perfect. I know I'm not the man you plan to build a life with. I know my world is dangerous and complicated. But I love you. And I want to spend whatever time we have being your husband, Natasha's father, and the man who's grateful every single day that you walked into my life. That was really romantic, Elena said, tears streaming down her face. For a crime boss. Former crime boss. I'm transitioning to legitimate businessman. You're transitioning to legitimate businessman, she corrected, laughing through her tears. And yes, I'll marry you. Marcus slipped the ring onto her finger, then kissed her with everything he had. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Elena pressed her forehead to his. I love you, Marcus Volkov. You impossible, stubborn, wonderful man. I love you too. My miracle. My cure. My everything. Inside the house, Natasha started crying, and they both laughed. Parenthood waited for no romantic moment. As they walked back together, hand in hand, Elena reflected on the impossible journey that had brought them here. She'd been a widow, broke and pregnant, desperate enough to make a deal with a dangerous man. That deal had nearly killed her more than once. It had dragged her into a world of violence and crime she'd never wanted to see. It had forced her to make impossible choices and face unimaginable danger. But it had also given her Marcus. It had given her a family. It had given her a love she'd thought was impossible and a future she'd thought was gone. Sometimes the worst decisions lead to the best destinations. Sometimes the most dangerous man becomes the safest place. And sometimes, miracles happen to people who've stopped believing in them. Elena Martinez, soon to be Elena Volkov, had learned that the hard way, and she wouldn't change a single moment of it. Well, maybe she'd skip the explosions. Those could have stayed fictional, but everything else was perfect.